I think a myth that I may have bought into during grad school was that the stuff I was learning was just about biology. I needed a job after grad school, and I was taking some time off after graduating and bouncing around, talking to friends. I had, learned some data science in my program just to be able to do the projects that I was working on. And a friend of mine actually was working at this company as a designer, and I was in Baltimore house sitting for her, and she was like, maybe you should apply. And I did, and I applied to a postdoc, and I applied to this. I thought for sure I was going to get the postdoc. I thought for sure I wasn't going to get this, and the opposite happened. And I'm pretty grateful for it. I learned on the same day that those things were true. The postdoc just didn't materialize. The two PIs decided not to work together, so that didn't happen. But yeah, I kind of told myself if I can do the interview, because I'd never really touched data other than biological data, like RNA-seq stuff. I told myself if I can do the interview questions, then I'll be all right, and it's been great ever since, actually.
That's so interesting. We'll talk about that more, I think, in a little bit, but you, I mean, I'm sure people feel this all the time. Our trainees kind of jumping into the job market didn't feel qualified necessarily for the
Sure.
data science role and was like, I got to apply to this postdoc because I'll get that, or, I should get that. But it's just crazy how stuff works out.
Yeah, I think there is a sense when that I had when I was in grad school for so long, and like what else can I do here was a big question. But I think data is data in terms of the tools that we use to analyze it, and so it's been actually really surprising how the like learning the scientific process or learning how to think through problems in grad school has been like incredibly applicable to my job. I still think of myself as a scientist. I am a scientist, and I used to use the city as a way of making an analogy to the complexity of a cell when I was talking to people for
Mm.
fun, and so now it's kind of like cute and romantic that I actually work for cities and see some of that complexity. And I'm not sure that we've talked about exactly what my role is, but it is working with different cities and using data to help them make better policy choices or applied to a specific question. And I work with cities all around the world, so it's been it's been interesting to transition, but it is certainly still science. And um, the things that I learned in grad school were wildly applicable, regardless of sort of like the specific field, I think.
One thing I know that's hard is translating like how your graduate work, may not be directly applicable to a role, but it's all about then kind of being able to translate what you did and to what the role needs, and likely somewhere in there, like you said, data was data. And then so was that kind of part of prepping for the interview? Is like, well, I have this experience, but then I just need to be able to communicate it in a way that shows I'm qualified for this job.
Yeah, exactly. And I knew there would be a moment in the interview where they would give me like a task.
Hmm.
And it wasn't on the spot or anything. It was like they said, here's a problem set, basically, here's some things to think through. Here's some data. Take 2 days to do it. Send it back to us. They said, don't spend more than 6 hours doing it, but I think I spent like 12. Um, in the end, I think part of it because I was interested, but part of it because it just took me a little bit longer to like acclimate to a new kind of thinking. But I think a myth that I may have bought into during grad school was that the stuff I was learning was just about biology, or that like
Mm.
these modes of thinking, um, learning assays, learning protocols, doing data analysis, like that, like it would be only applicable to being in a lab. And I think it's just really not the case. I think the kind of thinking that I learned and the type of things that I learned how to do are very separate, right? And I think that the I may not be doing Western blots on a day to day right now, but like the process of learning how to do them, how to troubleshoot them, like or you know, the data analysis stuff that I've learned, like all of that stuff is actually very helpful. And even as being a person who has had the experience of thinking through those things, it turns out that also has been a useful skill that I didn't anticipate really until I was like, oh, this is a thing I've learned. Like, it isn't the case that this is just a given. These are skills that I learned in grad school without really feeling like they were skills, because it's just part of the water that we drink, right? It's just like the things that you do. But it turns out that I have experienced anyway, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, but that some of those softer skills or some of those like untalked about skills are actually really helpful.